right, well, good morning, everybody. I am obviously thrilled and excited to be able to meet with not just the group that's on the call today, but also with everyone that listens in on Mindset Monday. This is a really passionate topic for Tina and I. We both feel that the push and pull of where to start your journey really comes down to you understanding your story. And there's no question about that. It's if you cannot push that narrative forward, then it becomes incredibly difficult for any one individual to truly not only earn the right for a job, but earn the right inside of relationships. So this is a point where we believe there is a three-legged stool of strength and foundation and every job seeker's kind of arsenal. And the first one sits inside of their marketing materials. That is your resume, that's your communication, your LinkedIn profile. And then that flows into your ability to be able to take that understanding of who you are, what you've accomplished, who's assisted you, how they've assisted you, and you pull that forward then into your networking. And then from your ability to be able to lean in on those individuals, whether that's inside of your cold, your warm, your blind style of networking, that funnels you into, of course, more interviews, and then the interview skills are the final pillar. So it really is the substantial, if you want to call bedrock foundation, is knowing your story, right? So I want everybody to just imagine something first, because this is truly a mindset situation. So I'm gonna take us into a moment, and I want you to really think about this. So whether or not you want to close your eyes or however you want to do this, but I want you to imagine that you're losing out on a job that you are absolutely perfect for. Not because you lack the experience, not because you didn't accomplish amazing things in your career, but simply because you couldn't explain your value clearly enough. And where I want you to then now come back out of that state is to realize that based on statistics, this is what 78% of current job seekers say is their number one problem. That they can't find their story. They can't find their value, their self-worth. So I'm starting us on a low here, because what I want to give you is I want you to understand that the point of Mindset Monday is that we all have a moment to rest, reframe, and refocus. Because whether you're not one of those individuals that feels that way today, whether you're an individual who feels like you're just the best communicator, or whether someone who's truly struggling, this is the moment where we get to kind of take that step back, right? Because what I want to convince all of you today, and what I want to show you, is that most of you are walking around with a winning lottery ticket. It's right in your pocket. But because some of us do not understand how to cash that lottery ticket in, it just becomes a piece of paper. And that lottery ticket, of course, is your story. And so the real question is, what is it that we need to do in order for us to be able to recognize the power of this lottery ticket and go cash it in and start building something towards your wealth, your career, advancing your family, whatever it might be that suits you best for your story. So here's how we have to do that. We have to have a good understanding of how to be able to tell that story clearly and concisely. We have to understand how to take important overall impact statements inside of your resume or your story and connect it to metrics. And then we also have to remove this uncomfortable kind of pain point, if you will, the true discomfort of being really, really proud of yourself that causes you to stay silent. And that's something that most job seekers have to deal with. We can't allow someone with less experience dominate us with a better story. And we see this quite a bit. Actually had a conversation this past week with an individual that we've worked with that said, oh my gosh, look at this individual who got this job over me. And when you go look up their credentials, it was quite fascinating to see that they should never have been beat by our candidate. I truly believe that she was phenomenal and outstanding. She's an alumni. She's got a job. If anyone really wants to have a chat, she'd probably be more than happy to do it. But when we were looking at it, she started playing back and she said, man, I just didn't tell my story well in that interview. And that correlates with a LinkedIn study that shows that 92% of hiring managers say that storytelling is the differentiator. It is the reason why someone gets a job or someone does not. And even going further than that, I love my data. Candidates who connect metrics with their overall story have a 58% higher chance of being moved on to the next round or being hired, period. You combine those two statistics together, and we can then see just the power and impact that a strong story can have. So it's not about fluff either. I want to be very clear here. A story should never just make you feel good or make them feel good. No, it should invigorate thought. It should energize the conversation so you can create something of a connection. It is truly an unlocking period that gives every single person the ability to cash in that lottery ticket, right? Because a great story as a candidate will actually pay out dividends for the hiring team. I'll say it again. You cashing in your lottery ticket and telling your story correctly will be paid out through the hiring team. They're the ones that win. We'll get deeper into why that matters a little bit later, right? So when you think about what that really means, we struggle in the way of the mindset. So let's start with that. You guys know I love things in threes, and the first one is definitely the right mindset, right? We struggle with the idea of being able to talk about ourselves. Right? And that is a mindset shift. We all have to realize, and I say this in most of our classes whenever we discuss this, but if you ever think about this and why it's important to be a little selfish in your communication about yourself, it's no different than when you think about when you're on an airplane and that airplane starts to crash, right? If it's going down and they lose and the oxygen masks fall, do they tell you to assist the person next to you, or they tell you first to put your oxygen mask on and then help everyone else? And the reason why is if you don't communicate well in a networking environment or in an interview, there's no way you can prove that you can actually save anybody else, assist the team, build an overall better process. Maybe you can complete an overall project much more efficiently if you can't first explain how and why you're so great about that. So the idea here is you have to create what's called a value creation. And we like to think of it as a nice big loop. Now, I don't have time to draw it up on the screen. This is something I try to do in some of the classes, or if you ever want this in a one-on-one, we can very specifically build it out for you. So if storytelling is something that you really want to overcome and there's a mindset gap there, this is definitely something we can all do together. But I want you to think about the concept of when you start to tell your story, or when you start to ask a selfish question in networking, right? The idea here is you want a selfless response. Let me give you an example. They ask question of you, you start to respond, right? Or you ask question in a networking environment. If the individual that you're communicating with starts to lean in for you, they start to give you positive body language, they nod their head, they show you that they're appreciating the conversation. What happens in most cases is people stop at that point. So even if you got the right selfish answer, you got the right overall split, they stop. They don't complete the loop. Once you see someone engage with you, that's called the mutual connection. Once that mutual connection starts to form, the idea here is now you can lean into shared momentum. This is where you can start to ask powerful follow-up questions. This is where when you're networking with an individual, you can start to lean into more of their story that they're providing to you, or you can get clarity and context. In an interview setting, this is how you start to relate it to the team. Oh, I see that answer is a value to you. Is this something that you guys are currently dealing with inside your organization, your team? Is this something that the previous employee that you had in this role did extremely well? These are wonderful follow-up questions that create the value creation loop. The idea here for every one of us is that if we can understand that picking out the parts of our story that are so important and explaining them well will give you the opportunity to, of course, connect those dots. Now, some of you might say, well, wait, Stephen, that's great. That sounds all wonderful, but I don't know how to pick out those moments in my resume. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of that in really the part two. And this is the idea of discovering your story. So all of us, every job seeker, I want you to understand that whether you've been searching for 2 years or 2 weeks, you've been exceptional your entire career. And there's no way anyone can take that from you. Whether you have a 4-year degree and you were just on a couple internships, that's it, just a couple, you still did phenomenal things that were better than other individuals in that space. Or maybe you have 15 years. You can't take away those 15 years. You can't take away your accomplishments. In fact, those are the moments that you want to escalate, bring forward, and share. And so if you're feeling a little bit down that you didn't accomplish anything, I challenge you. To reach out to some of your old colleagues and just have the conversation with them, because that's exactly what you're going to do when you get into a networking event or an interview. You're going to think through the STAR method if you'd like, right? Or I like to break things into threes. They make it a little bit easier for me. So you can think of it as problem or situation. And then you have a strategy, right, in the center. And then you had a result that came from it. So you can think of it as a strategy or a situation, a strategy, and then a result, or a problem, strategy, and result. It's that simple. So what was the challenge or goal that was in front of you? Then from there, you pick out inside of that bullet point, well, what did you do to implement it? Who did you work with? Who did you go get assistance from? Who taught you something? Did you upskill yourself? Did you develop something new for the team? Did you implement it? How did that work? What did that look like? And then ultimately, what was the result? Now, the key here from a measurable outcome is I want you to understand this can be directly related into the way, if you word it correctly, into the current role. And this is where the power of discovery comes in. When you practice and know your story well enough, and you truly start to see how your career has evolved from a beginning, a middle, into where you're going, it unlocks your ability to be able to articulate well to any job opening. I'm going to say it again. If you understand the early part of your career, your development to the middle part of your career, who helped you, why them helping you was important, what training did you get, why did you lean into that, if you made a pivot, why did you pivot, where are your passions, where are you going, that gives you the ability to share then the backstory of where you're going. And if you do that consistently for yourself and you get comfortable there, then there's absolutely no chance that an individual won't lean into those moments and start asking questions, because you're going to relate it to the job description. You're going to relate it to their team. You'll have the ability to do the loop. And every value creation loop that you create will open a new conversation going forward. This is how in our networking courses that we teach, you go from a 15-minute virtual coffee to a 1-hour conversation. This is how a 30-minute interview turns into an hour to 2 hours. A great example of this, if you need to hear it, is go look at Danny Jensen's success story that just launched and go listen to what he did with his interview with that CEO, right? It went from, of course, a 30-minute meeting to 2 hours, right? And that locked him getting that job. It sealed it for him. He was probably the second candidate, if not possibly the third. But that interaction opened the whole door because he wasn't scared of telling his story, because he was proud. And he had a gap in his resume, guys. He had a short stint. He had some difficulties he had to overcome. So definitely go check it out if you haven't listened to it. It's really good. He did an exceptional job, right? And he, of course, is a part of the Discord. You can find him on LinkedIn to shoot him a message if you want to chat. He said he's more than open to share, right? So the idea here is that you have every opportunity to share who you are and why you are, what you currently are, and where you're going. That's the overall piece. So then now let's think about, how do you do this? How do you become confident in this? Because all this sounds like great words. Like, good job, Stephen. Yeah, you can ramble on about this. But how do I build consistency? How do I build confidence? And I'm going to tell you, that's the hard part. You cannot have the overall confidence before you have clarity. So this is where, when we first started this conversation, before we clicked the record and we were all talking about it, you have to have the ability to know your superpowers. You have to have the ability to know 5 to 7 bullet points on your resume that really truly tell who you are as not just an employee and an individual, but who you truly are as an individual looking to advance your career, or where you want to go, or what do you want to do. All of those things, those inherent things that make you who you are, not the job itself, but you personally. You have to be able to have clarity there, and then you can build the confidence. The confidence itself just comes from repetition. The clarity gives that repetition a chance, right? You have to have a strategy, right? And then execute off of that strategy through the repetition. So here's what I would encourage everybody to do, right? Is one, work on writing out a short case study. And when I say case study, it could be a designated story, maybe one bullet point, if you will, off your resume. An impact bullet point would be the most important thing. Please share it right into the Coaching Connect. Myself and Tina will give you some feedback there, or put it into a DM if you'd rather do that, or if you want us to take it to the DM, let's do that too. But the idea here is we want to give you a chance to be able to break down some of these pieces for you. Because the truth of the matter is, if you can tell at least one bullet point, you get the framework, you can rinse, wash, repeat. Right? Everything Tina and I are going to teach, whether you're inside of this free program or you're in our monthly membership, we are designing this for you to be able to teach it over and over and over again and build repetition so the foundation becomes strong. If you can figure out one story and build one strong connection to that story, right, then you will build the rest of them, and you'll build momentum. And momentum will build your confidence. I loved where we were at last week. I think it was Courtney that shared. It was so great how she was able to talk about how she's seeing it, she's feeling it now, right? And that typically happens once you start getting some conversations going. Some things start to open up for you. Jarrett, I see Jarrett join. Good morning to you, Jarrett. And I know Jarrett has got some interviews going. He's got some exciting things happening, right? So when you start to lean into this and you start to work those connections and you work through some of those practice points, you'll see that momentum build and that confidence just escalates from there. Right. So I'm gonna ask one more thing of everybody. Right. And I want you just, again, I know we kind of were envisioning this back, but I want to bring it back to the positive aspect of this, because you might be feeling like, I don't know how to do this. Yes, you can. I want you to all think of one story, just one story right now, where you truly demonstrated that value in that past role. Just one of them, right? One central point of reference that you can highlight, that you can circle. And that bullet point is where you're going to start, okay? And I want you to think, what measurable result from that bullet point can be attached to the standard job opening that you're looking for, or maybe one you have open right now, or maybe it's even an interview coming up. And then I want you to think about, right, how does that story open a door for you? Does it open the door, and this is where it comes to playing chess and not checkers, does it open the door for a value creation moment in an interview? Does it open the door for a much more in-depth question or dialogue with a networking individual who could open up so many more doors for you? How does that overall bullet point help build you up in who you are in the past, current, and where you're going? This is truly how every single one of our stories builds value. This is how every single one of us can lean in to truly what's made us great throughout all of our past. And then how do we utilize that to push the narrative force for what we want to accomplish this week? So whether you have 5 interviews this week or 0, you can take this message and apply it into networking. Whether you have no concept of networking because you haven't figured a story, then what would you do with your resume? Take a minute, write it down. What's 1 or 2 bullet points? Start with those. The idea is build some form of clarity for yourself so you can start working on that repetition of that story, get a 30-second elevator pitch down, and go. So as I wrap it up, it's this. We are not job seekers. You're storytellers. You are builders. You are impact creators. And the goal for all of us is to go display those things to other people consistently with that confidence and that direct clarity. So that's the goals for this week.